everybody, and welcome back to the CF Dalton Podcast, the only podcast where you get to hear my lovely voice chit-the-chat about some of the world's most pressing issues. Now, I was away last week. I was trying to educate myself on how to create content, how to work on Audacity here, which, I'm not gonna lie, I used to have a friend to help me with it, but now he's busy living his own life, so in all honesty, it's not that hard. So, I've been listening to your comments, I've been digesting them, I've been percolating on some, but I've tried to figure out what to do with this from here on, trying to elevate my content here to greatness. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to do a long form, then I'm going to cut it up into little snippets, some of the highlights you may claim, so that it can be a little bit easier to digest, so I can have just a tiny bit more content, because that's what the algorithm wants. And I'm planning on doing a very special, on the toss. And for those of you who thought I was so stupid I didn't know what terms of service was, shame on you. If you've been listening to me for more than a minute and a half, you should know that I'm totally fine with ribbing people. I'm totally fine with trolling others, which, admittedly, I think that trolling is an excuse for poor behavior and shows that you weren't disciplined enough as a child, but I think that what we need to do here is realize other people have differences of opinions. Other people have thoughts on things that you may not agree with, but that's no reason to be a dick to someone. So that's what my plan is here from now on. And if any of you have some nasty, evil, angry bile that you want to throw at me in the comment section, not only do I welcome it, but whoever has the best will automatically be pinned up to the top as having the best insult of the day, week, month, and eventually I'm going to collaborate them together to see who has the worst comment about me they can possibly throw. I promise, nothing's off limits. And I've already awarded a couple of people for their interesting takes on me. So, go ahead, invite your friends, invite somebody else, let them know that this guy does not give a crap what you say about him. So, I feel like it helps you be more involved in the process, shall I say. Anyway, let's start this off with the hot list. And all sources are available on the podcast section of cfdalton.net. James Corden, my favorite emoji hand, ended up singing a very strange take on Hairspray concerning COVID lockdowns. Let me just say that, one, for a man of his size, he could really jam, not gonna lie. However, it was really weird when they were bouncing on the Fauci trampoline. I'm sorry, I don't want that man's face anywhere near me, much less me bouncing my bum on top of him. So yeah, that was just kind of disturbing to me. Also, the drag queen that was on Blue's Clues teaching people about Pride Month, that was disturbing for a couple of reasons. One, when I was a little boy and I was growing up, I was told that I wasn't supposed to think of people in the, and let me get this right, LGBTQAAIP with the sound number 2 community. I wasn't supposed to assume that they were child molesters for 2 reasons. One, that's just incredibly disgusting. And 2, that's just a very broad brush to lace across a whole bunch of people. It's not polite. So I still believe that. But if it's not for indoctrination, and if it's not pedophilic, why is it on Blue's Clues? A show targeted not to like 10, 12-year-olds who might be thinking about transitioning. It's targeted to 3 and 5-year-olds. Why would you show that on there? I don't know. Something to think about. And finally, and I know I'm a little late on commenting on this, but I think that I'm allowed to at this point. The Army Combat Fitness Test, very different from the Army Physical Fitness Test, is full of crap. The reason I know it's full of crap is, alright, a little bit personal with me. I broke 39 bones in my body. 33 of them were in my spine. I have a messed up right knee. It'll probably need replacing, but I have to wait like 20 years for that. I teamed up with one of my buddy's units and passed it. I'm sorry, but if somebody like me can pass it, then you're going to have some very out-of-shape soldiers. Because, let me read it down. Let me read what's involved with it. The minimum for the deadlift is 120 pounds. Now, for some people that might sound like a lot. It's not. I mean, my daughter weighs more than that. Then you have a standing power throw. Basically, you take a big old ball, you throw it as far as you can from behind you, kind of like a kettlebell swing, but you just keep swinging and let go of it. Then you have the hand release push-up. Do you remember doing push-ups maybe in PE, or maybe you were part of a football team, wrestling team? Some point in your life, someone's asked you to do a push-up. And you know how your hands stay on the ground the entire time? Yeah, forget that. You get to elevate your hands, put them back, and push back up. Then you have a drag, sprint, drag, jerk. Basically what they do is you have to carry some ammo bags. Basically you have to pull a sled for 25 meters 4 times. Basically, they're trying to insinuate that you're going to be doing this in a combat environment, which, to be fair, you will. But the thing that they don't tell you is, for most MOSs, that's military occupational specialty, you are probably never going to fire your weapon. In fact, you probably never will be given a weapon. And it's just strange to me that they switched to this and said that this is better because it trains you for a combat environment, yet they got rid of the old test scores because you weren't going to be required to be in top physical condition if you were, say, a cook or something. Then you have the leg tuck. They've replaced the sit-up with this. Something that, not gonna lie, a lot of fatties are probably going to enjoy, but basically what you're supposed to do is you hold on to a pull-up bar, and you pull your knees up as far as you possibly can so they go past your elbows. To some people that might sound difficult. It's not. 2 to 5 times. And finally, we have a 2-mile run. You see, the old PT test, what they would do is you would have to run it in like 15 minutes, 54 seconds if you were young, and then as you got older, they would, okay, let it taper a little bit, because while you're an older chap, you're not going to be able to hang out with all the 17, 18-year-olds anymore. Well, they got rid of that. And it's based on your job description. Some people might think that that's a good thing. The issue I have with it is, now, I wasn't able to do the 2-mile run, but I was allowed to do the 2-mile walk. If anybody is on a profile, like say they messed up a knee and messed up the back, they messed up something, they put you on what is called a profile, basically saying, okay, you can't do the run, but you can do the walk. So, my time was 24 minutes to walk 2 miles. People have walked faster through Bass Pro Shop to get to the gun counter than it took for me to walk that. I still had 4 minutes to spare. So, yeah. And, I forgot to mention, it's a gender-neutral PT score. They don't, because used to they would have, like for an 18-year-old, a guy, you would have like the minimum 42 push-ups, the minimum 53 sit-ups, the minimum run 1554. For the ladies, it was like something like 30 push-ups, same number of sit-ups, but the run time was like 19:14. This on top of the maternity flight suits, and on top of the cleaner cut, lady approved ACU patterns, or excuse me, OCP now. Yeah, those are going to make us more combat efficient. Basically, we're going to weaken the military so that more people can join, more people can become a bullet catcher. Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful idea, an idea that only Congress could come up with. So, I guess we'll have to see how that goes. Anyway, that's the hot list. That's the big takes that have been going on lately. And again, all sources are available at cfdalton.net under the podcast. So, now I'm going to get into a quick thing that somebody brought up. Why do I comment on points of view I may disagree with? And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of sad about that. I was sad that that was even a question that was asked seriously. The reason being is I don't like groupthink. I think that it takes far less courage, far less intestinal fortitude to just go with the flow with whichever group dynamic you choose to believe in, you choose to agree with, than to look at both sides and make decisions for yourself. Case in point, I watch 2 news sources, and I get them as extreme as I possibly can on either level. One is Blaze TV, ran by Glenn Beck. The other one is MSNBC, probably the furthest away from my thought process as possible. I do this because I want to see exactly what both sides are thinking at the extremes, so that I can take the good and the bad from both sides and come up with a solution that I agree with. The same thing is what I do with news content that I read every morning. Every single morning, I check out the Political Playbook and Daily Wire, which, okay, they might not be as far away from each other. It would probably be as far away as Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, but hey, they're 2 opposing sides. And Ben Shapiro says a lot of things I agree with. He says a lot of things I disagree with. Political Playbook, talks about a lot of things I agree with, a lot of things I disagree with. But having both of those sides is essential for me to come up with a solution that makes sense to me. Finally, I have probably 400 and something books in this room. I can dare say that more than half I don't agree with. I don't agree with a single word they say. Case in point, right over here, there's Mein Kampf, there's State and Revolution, the Communist Manifesto. 3 books right off the bat that I think are written by a whole bunch of whack jobs. Let's see, over here, there's a little bit of Fielding, a little bit of Pascal. I just don't agree with their premises. They write beautifully. And let's see, on the fiction route, we have a little bit of Les Mis, we have a little bit of The 120 Days of Sodom. If you ever read that book, I hope that you have a garbage bag next to you so you can throw up in it. And those are just a couple that I don't agree with them. The reason I read them is because, one, a lot of them were written by academics or were written and were deconstructed by people centuries later to come up with their premises now. I just think that it's important for someone to be as well-rounded as humanly possible so that they can agree with what they can agree with, disagree with what they don't, and know why. And that's what brings me to critical race theory versus logic. Alright. Critical race theory implies that the system is racist right down to its core. Pete Buttigieg even talked about how transportation is racist. Basically, our highways are rooted in racism. I have yet to read anything about that made any sense to me, but let's go with his argument. Okay, the roadway is systemically racist. How? Seriously, how? What made them all the way down to the bottom of the ground underneath the asphalt racist? Is it the fact that it's asphalt and it's black? I mean, is that it? Is it because of the yellow tabs going up the middle? Some of them have white tabs. What is the issue? He never really explained anything about that. Okay. Systemic racism. I can only name a couple of them that were used in Democratic-ran cities. A few little things like redlining and Jim Crow. You can't live here because you're black or yellow, you're not white. You can't drink out of that fountain unless you're a white man. Who was running the place when that was happening? I mean, the Republicans were created for the sole purpose of getting rid of slavery. The Democrats were created for pretty much the sole reason of continuing slavery, and they still have even to this day. Don't believe me? Who keeps spouting that your race is everything that defines you? Who doesn't? I mean, the only reason we have Juneteenth, the only reason it became a federal holiday, is because a whole bunch of people were burning shit down, and our governments are filled with weak old white people who didn't just say, no. In fact, it's already a thing in Texas, Emancipation Day, and slavery hadn't been a thing for 150 years. The Civil Rights Act was passed in 1967. We've been working our way to creating a better environment for our people of color. And no, we're not going to give you a single cent more. If you don't like it, tough. You keep burning crap down, we'll throw you back in the slammer. I mean, I think that there was a reparation that was done. We've already paid the reparations. The reparation we paid was affirmative action. Think about it. A black guy who scored lower on his SAT can take the place of me, a white guy, who scored a little bit higher, but I suffer from the disease of being white, therefore he gets a slot. The poor Asian folk have to score higher than me to get into a lot of these colleges. So, haven't we solved the reparation problem? You can get into a school much easier than I can. You can get a scholarship much easier than I can. There are actually black-only scholarships, black-only colleges, historically black communities. The only historical white community I can think of is Hilton Head. So all of these old laws that were passed by Democrats aren't there anymore. But they were able to pass one of them, which was the Poverty Act, which ended up destroying black communities. And I know what you're thinking. How is this pasty white dude able to talk about these things? Because I have the stones to do so. I'm not going to apologize for how I feel, what I think, and I don't think that my race is a big part of who I am. I don't think that President Obama's race should have been a giant part of who he was. There was this really wise guy at some point that used to talk about, judge me not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. Whatever happened to him? I mean, whatever happened to his words? There was an exceptionally angrier guy who was in the works around the same time as the other wise guy, who was basically saying, just leave us alone. we'll figure this crap out by ourselves. I can agree with both premises of those wise older gentlemen. Your race is not what defines you. I refuse to believe that it is. You can't get me to think that way. That is how racists think. And until we stop pointing at each other saying, well, actually, we're only pointing one way, it's every single thing in the world is the white man's fault, at least in America. So how do we fix all of this? We need to get some people with some actual stones who will start suing corporations when they try to put you through a whiteness class. And that's already started with Coca-Cola. Rest assured, if I ever work for any place and they try to get me to take a "you're white, therefore you are an evil racist" course, I'm going to press charges. I'm gonna say that I'm being discriminated based on the color of my skin. If you don't think that it works that way, I'm going to do something that might be very dangerous on YouTube because they love to flag people for saying these things. Let me say some of the things that have been thrown at me, but I'm going to reverse them. Let me know when you get uncomfortable. Alright, here we go. You ready? You black devil. You raper of children. You destroyer of countries. Everything in this world is the black man's fault. There are 3 problems with the black man. Okay, I felt uncomfortable even for continuing that one, so let's switch to the misogynist stuff. Ready? The problem with this country is the woman. She has privilege. She has a matriarchy that tries to take apart everything that the man has done. And the only way that we can get past this is to tell them to step down and let a man be in charge for a change. And my personal favorite, some of the things that are said by LGBTQ plus activists, but I'm gonna flip it a little. I am a heterosexual male. I enjoy having sex with women. I mean, like, a lot. Like, it is my thing. That is the only thing in this world that defines me, and you must respect it. Are you respecting it? You're not respecting it. I don't think you are, because you are still not allowing me to have my own month. You are not allowing me to have a parade. You're not allowing me to have, non-stop sex with women. And if women don't want to have sex with me, then they are sexist. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that last one got me pretty uncomfortable too. My point with them is, if people would just, take whatever they're about to say and flip it around, they would notice that they are in fact the racists, they're in fact the sexists, they're in fact the fascists that they love fighting against. Because it's like, agree with me or I'm gonna hit you. I don't know, it's gotten so creepy and so misconstrued that it almost feels like the woke ideology is becoming a sort of religion. And it makes sense, less millennials and Gen Zs are growing up in religious households than ever before. So it makes sense that some sort of dogma would replace the older establishment. There was something that George Carlin said once: the last refuge for a man with no argument and no reasoning skill is that your ideas came from God. It almost feels like the exact same argument can be made against the woke ideology. The last refuge for anyone with no argument is to call you a racist, sexist, homophobe, transphobe, because they have no argument. It's like, I don't know how to argue this. I have not the skills, so I will just call you something mean. Which, hey, it's fine for me. That's how I know I won. Or another one of my favorite ones is nuance. They always talk about nuance. I'm sorry, nuance is a term often used by academics when they don't know how to take a stand on the issue. And I just think that the only way that anyone's ever going to be able to fight back is to basically say, no, I'm not going to take any of that. You are going to have to convince me that you're right. Which brings me right back to the start of this program. I don't like echo chambers. I don't just watch one news. Anytime I see something that doesn't pass the bullshit smell test, I immediately look up the polar opposite news show so that I can know that there's probably some good and bad in either one, and adding up the good on both sides is how we come out with the positive outlook. People who live in echo chambers are basically the pathetic people who aren't capable of standing on their own 2 feet. That's what tribalism is based on. I don't have the strength to fight back on my own, so instead I'm just going to take a side and hope that everybody else can help me. I'd like to close this with a little bit of happiness, a little bit of uplifting stuff, and say, I don't hate a single person who hates me. I don't want any harm to come across to anyone. I don't hate anyone who thought I was so stupid that I didn't know what terms of service was. In all honesty, I think I was trying to get a rise out of people. I can't really help it. I'm a flawed man. But all I can hope for is that in the future, we all can learn a little bit from each other because we have so much in common. Left, right, black, white, yellow. We're all part of this great human experience. And even though I disagreed with Teacher Eddie on a whole lot of things, I agree with him on a whole lot too. In fact, my first ever time seeing him was when he reacted to the Don't Stay in School from Boy in a Band. I agreed with him on everything for that. My point is, we're a lot more in common than we think. I just hope that it's not too late for us all to realize this and to learn from it. So, if you stayed, please, 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 leave a like, comment, subscribe. Hey, subscribe if you hate me, That way you can at least downvote and try to get into the competition of who has the meanest insult that they could possibly throw at me. I promise I will check it, and I will pin you at the top, declaring you the winner. But if you do, like me, head on over to CF Dalton again. The show notes are over there, where you can delve a little bit deeper into this topic, and hey, we might learn a little something from each other. Thank you so much for listening to me. Take care. God bless. Bye.